Hello, I'm Jordan and welcome back to The Hidden Cup. Today I'm talking about digital interference in our spiritual lives, and this is an issue that has been very important to me for some time because it's a problem that I've been dealing with in my own life. And the first big milestone that I accomplished in this area is disengaging from social media. For me, it was mainly a time sink and an issue of emotional harm, but really, I have found that any time we spend engaging with digital devices can lead to spiritual contamination because of the energies involved. As we know, energy is all around us and it's a part of everything, including our spirit, our bodies, our minds. And when we interact with computer devices and other forms of digital electronics, we're encountering something that has concentrated energy that's designed for very specific purposes. And if we're not conscientious of how we're using those in our own life, we can contaminate our spirit with energy that we don't want there for the purposes that we're actually focused on. So for things like social media, you're internalizing, really everyone else's negativity, although you do sometimes encounter positive things. But for me, it really had become a chronically negative experience where all I did was doom scroll, as they say. And although I told myself that I was looking for signs of hope and little things that would give me a bit of positivity and optimism, the actual experience of it was almost uniformly negative, just by virtue of how social media is, the way the algorithms work, and with everything going on in the world, I had found it increasingly difficult to get anything positive out of the experience at all. And once I became aware of this and realized the impact it was having on me emotionally, spiritually, and also physically, I realized that I had to make a change. So I started disengaging from social media. I deleted all of my accounts except for a Facebook that I now use primarily to keep in contact with friends and family and to provide updates on my YouTube page and a few other things. But mostly my use of social media has dropped down to near zero on most days, and I have found that my head is clearer, I'm sleeping better, I'm much less stressed by current events, I'm less fixated on current events, and overall I'm happier. And it was also a major step towards my spiritual development because it created a lot of free time that I was able to use for reading, for meditation, for hiking, for things that actually nourish my spirit. Another major milestone that I have accomplished just over the past few days is for the past, 5, maybe 10 years, I don't know how long they've been out, but I've been wearing an Apple Watch for a very, very, very long time. And it's a wonderful device. I love it. It's very handy, especially if you're wanting to spend less time in your smartphone and have an unrestricted smartphone. Having an Apple Watch gives you an opportunity to just interface with weather, text messages, just the basics on your wrist without actually having to pull the phone out of your pocket and risk getting lost in social media and other forms of digital black hole experience. But the fact of the matter is, you still have an electronic device strapped to your body at all hours of the day. And if you're like me, you would recognize a little bit of an issue here because these devices are concentrated energy items that have a very specific purpose. And they're imprinting their energy signature on your body at all times that you're engaged with them on a physical basis. So if you're wearing a smartwatch, that is an energetic presence that's going to follow you everywhere you go. Now, the severity of this is going to depend on how sensitive you are and, frankly, what your view on these items is. You may not even see this as an issue whatsoever. But for me, first of all, I've realized I am very sensitive to energetic interference from electronic devices. At minimum, there's a bit of a compulsive factor. When I see someone on their smartphone, it makes me a little more tempted to pull out my own. And I do, though, believe that there is actually an issue with spiritual contamination from the energy signatures of these devices, especially for smartphones. Now, I talked briefly in a previous video about egregores and gestalt consciousnesses and other ways that non-physical entities can be alive. And I increasingly feel like the internet is such an entity. Whether it has come alive by virtue of the energy that we feed into it, which is my personal theory because I find that I feel like the energy from my body is actually flowing out into the screen, and I feel like I am being drained or perhaps even fed on by the entity that is the internet. But there are other ways to look at it as a living entity, an emergent consciousness. Some people see AI, hints of that as a intelligent life form. But I really do feel like the internet is a digital entity that feeds on the life force of human beings. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a malicious one, but it is animated by its engagement with us. And I find myself feeling incredibly depleted, and that sense of depletion increases exponentially the more time I engage with any device that's connected to the web. And the more unrestricted the device is, the more pronounced that effect is. So for something like a smartwatch, where there are some significant constraints placed on what that device can do, you're dealing primarily with the energy signature, that little vortex of swirling power on your wrist, and the impact that that may have on you spiritually, as well as the risk of distraction from the specific inputs that it gives you throughout the day. But with an unrestricted smartphone, you're really dealing with Pandora's box. You're dealing with something that every time you open it, you have access to infinity, and you don't actually know for sure what you're going to get out of that experience. So if you're someone like me who was opening the box every day looking for hope, you may have forgotten that hope is the last thing in the box, and there's so much chaos and craziness that has to come out of the box first before you find hope. So once I came to that realization that not only are these devices vortexes, they're also portals, and they're opening us up to something that is can be productive if we're using it in a targeted manner and are applying our intent and our moderation and our self-control. We are able to use these for specific structured purposes. But without those guidelines, without those guardrails, if we just open ourselves up and pour ourselves into those portals without any sense of structure or regulation, it can drain us of emotional energy, of spiritual energy, and of physical energy. And there's an emerging body of research proving the physical and emotional aspects of the depletion. So I think it's fairly intuitive that the spiritual side would have an impact there as well. And that has certainly been my experience. So the big milestone over the weekend was I decided to take off my smartwatch. For the first time in many years, I didn't wear it for an entire day. And I felt like something shifted almost immediately, just by virtue of being out there purely with my own energy signature without this kind of interference. And since I've already partially locked down my smartphone so I can only use it for texting, music, and checking bank accounts, I found that my experience with the world was much freer because I don't have that digital comet trail following me around, that those little extra injections of information, those additional distractions. But I also feel like there's a very real, tangible, energetic impact that has come from just removing that little entity from my wrist and making it so that it's not constantly interfering with my own energy signature. I feel freer, I feel happier, and I have found myself slipping more readily into the state of mind that I categorize as my ideal self, or at least a step in that direction. At the times in my life where I feel like I've been in sync with the universe, in tune with my higher self, and really just going with the flow of life and experiencing routine synchronicity, it has a certain type of spiritual signature to it, sort of a particular sense of the outer world. It's hard to put into words, but the way I engage with the world when I'm in that mindset is much more open. I'm less prone to distraction, or at least non-productive distraction. I'm more likely to make new friends, to learn new things, to have exciting and unexpected experiences. So I look to my life and I look to those, to that signature as an indication of whether or not I'm on the right path. And just from one day of not having my smartphone on, I found myself slipping into that state of mind more readily. So that was Sunday, and now I'm on my third day without wearing my smartwatch. And I've continued my pattern of trying to leave my cell phone behind whenever I can without having to worry too much about, worrying the people in my life who do like to keep in touch with me. And it's continuing my digital detox. The work I began by stepping away from social media and chronic internet scrolling, it's continuing that, and it has really improved that. I was also using my smartwatch as a bedside alarm clock. And again, that's digital energy following you into your dream states. And that's something that I have found I don't actually want. So I've removed the watch charger from my bedroom, and I'm no longer using that as my clock. And I feel like the past couple nights I've been sleeping better too. And I know that's a very short sample size. It's not enough to prove anything definitively. But when I look back at the stages, the times in my life when I was minimizing my engagement with the electronic and the digital worlds, I do feel like I was objectively more able to connect with my spirit readily and more free to pursue activities that contributed to personal growth. So I feel like this has been a positive step for me, and I will continue doing this at least indefinitely and see if it continues having the same impact it has on me. And there was something else I was going to mention today that I seem to have forgotten, so I guess we'll wrap up the video on that note, and I'll continue posting more as I learn more. And if you have any insight or feedback, I always am happy to hear comments from anyone, any suggestions. And if this video was helpful, I like hearing that as well. A little bit of validation is nice, although I am primarily making these videos as a tool for personal growth and learning how to articulate my views better and just giving me an excuse to reflect on things that are on my mind. I do hope that they're making a positive impact on people. So if you got anything out of this, please comment and let me know. If you have any related advice to offer, I welcome that as well. And I look forward to continuing this journey with all of you. Thank you for watching.